Impact was the third good show in a row, at least the third, and probably the best one yet. So things are looking up for this plucky little company out of Florida. They do still do some things that annoy me. There's one that actually happened 3 or 4 times on the show where they will do a backstage segment with somebody talking about something they're going to do, and then immediately cut to the ring where that thing is happening. So I have no idea what the point of the backstage segment is. For example, first thing we saw on the show was Kurt Angle cutting a promo backstage. He had a list of cue cards listing reasons he hated Jeff Hardy. He said he was going to share them with us tonight. He cackled and guffawed. A very odd little 15 seconds. Then the very next thing we see is Kurt Angle coming to the ring with his cue cards. So why do we have to see him backstage?
Rhetorical question, for sure.
So,
I don't know. It's a preview.
Don't
switch that channel. Crazy Kurt Angle's going to come out.
Some of the reasons Kurt Angle hates Jeff Hardy includes, this is a quote, Jeff Hardy has lots of hair and I don't.
Mm-hmm.
He did not like the way Jeff dressed. He did not like the way Jeff showed up late for autograph signings. He did not like the fact that he did not like the fact that girls love Jeff Hardy. And as he said this, they cut to 2 girls in the crowd who are like, meh. But the biggest reason he hates Jeff Hardy is because for all his own action figures, all the Kurt Angle action figures, all the Kurt Angle posters, all the Kurt Angle t-shirts he has, when he goes into his son's room, he sees Jeff Hardy posters on the wall. He steps on Jeff Hardy action figures. His son goes to bed in a Jeff Hardy t-shirt and actually even wears Jeff Hardy makeup. And that Kurt can't abide this. So he called Jeff out. He challenged him to a match at Victory Road. Jeff responded by slapping the key cards out of his hands and hitting a double leg takedown. Let me repeat that. Jeff Hardy took down Kurt Angle.
His Olympic chances are slim.
Indeed. Indeed. So agents ran down to separate them. Kurt backed away up the ramp. Jeff accepted the challenge. I enjoy this new world of Impact where, by and large, segments have a beginning and an ending and something is accomplished. They have a purpose.
The only thing I don't like about this is the fact that Kurt actually had a pretty darn good reason as to why he didn't like Jeff Hardy. He had a bunch of good reasons. But unfortunately, the first reason he had to bring up was, you've got hair and I don't. And then he said, your hair is purple. And I was like, it's comedy now.
Yes.
And it reminded me too much of the John Cena promo that I have to watch every week where he comes out and he goes, ha, 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 let me tell some bad jokes that aren't funny, and then I'll get serious. I don't need that on 2 shows. 1 show is fine. Kurt had a great promo without goofy comedy at the beginning.
Fair enough. Roode was cutting a promo backstage saying that when Sting had booked himself against Bobby Roode in a pay-per-view main event, this was bad for business. Because there was a locker room full of guys who deserved a title shot instead of Sting. Austin Aries interrupted. He referenced his tweet bitching about not getting a main event. They said they had a lot in common and they agreed to talk more. It turned into a gauntlet match. We were not sure what was going on here for a while. But it was AJ versus, Daniels and Kazarian came out. Actually, let's start at the beginning. Before commercial, they put up a graphic that implied the message we both got was that AJ would be fighting Kazarian and Daniels in a handicap match.
Yeah, so that had a picture of Kazarian and Daniels, and then it said versus, and it had a picture of AJ Styles.
All right. So after commercial, Christy Hami's in the ring, and she announces it's a gauntlet match. So now that the match has been booked and announced twice, what happens is AJ comes out and says if he can beat both men, then they will have to reveal the secret that Daniels has been using to blackmail Kazarian. So the heels come out. Daniels starts to protest against this stipulation, but Kaz cuts him off, grabs the mic, and accepts. So it started with Daniels versus AJ. By Impact standards, this was an Ironman match. For an Impact opening match, they had a long segment, went to commercial, and they had another long segment, bordering like 10 minutes, which is unheard of in this company. So AJ was running wild. He stopped to bicker with Kazarian. Daniels hit him from behind for the heat. Then AJ hit his comeback, And as he's running wild, the crowd was totally into it. Kazarian attacks him in front of the ref. Immediate DQ. He lays him out with his reverse pile driver. Daniels was baffled. And then as Daniels had been disqualified, the next match started, and Kazarian laid on top of AJ and made a cover, and the ref counted 3. So Kaz was satisfied. Daniels was confused. AJ was prone, and the secret was unrevealed.
Do you think they're ever going to reveal the secret?
I'm guessing they don't know what it is.
I hope they do. Well, I can't say they got a new booking regime, but Russo's out, so I don't know I don't know what's going on. I just know that when I watch it, I have no idea what's going on. It makes no sense to me. And that's fine if in the end it's going to make sense. They're going to have a reason. But I'm not quite sure why, if Kazarian is being blackmailed, and if AJ won both matches, the secret would be revealed. Why Kazarian wouldn't cost Daniels a match and then have himself get pinned, so the secret would have to be revealed. He protected the secret by pinning AJ. So I hope they've got a good explanation for all of this, because right now it's goofy.
He protected the secret after he was the one who put it on the line. And it was very important to him that he beat AJ, but not that Daniels does.
Yes.
This is all contradictory. And more importantly, I don't care about any of it. Madison was backstage, hanging pictures of Gail in the hallway. Gail arrived. She said she had gotten some gifts from Madison. The first was a spa day, and Madison was happy. And the second was a match with ODB, and Madison was sad.
Wait till next week.
We had Madison versus ODB. Taz informed us that Eric Young's beard smelled, and I quote, pissy.
Like urine, he said.
That sucks.
This match sucked.
This
whole segment and everything about it absolutely sucked.
I forgot about this until right now.
ODB and Madison as a match sucked. Eric Young was being Eric Young on the apron, which sucked. He was on the apron, outside the ring, running back and forth like an idiot, distracting the referee. They did a finish with Gail where she was supposed to pretend like she was too slow getting into the ring, but it didn't make sense until after the match was over, so when you watch it, it looked like she just couldn't figure out how to get into the ring. The whole match was kind of a cluster, and then finally when it was over, I guess the storyline was that Gail was allowing Madison to be pinned or something like that. The whole thing is, sometimes you can book a finish that's too clever for your own good. That's what this was. This segment sucked.
Bully Ray was backstage bitching about Brandon Jacobs and James Storm to a random woman. Roode and Aries arrived. They said they were going to do something about Sting and invited him to join them. Then a terrible segment occurred. Boy, looking back over this, you are right about the women. They are all over this show, and it was never any good. This is the worst one. All right, so...
Actually, this is the best one.
It started when Velvet was in the parking lot or outside the building bitching to a camera about getting screwed, and then she got in a fight with Winter and Angelina. Was this segment taped 4 months ago and only airing right now?
Supposedly it was taped earlier in the day.
That's what they said. I was trying to figure out why Velvet got screwed and why Angelina was fighting with her.
This is the thing last week, the Battle Royal.
Well, they explained it after commercial. It turns out that the sample we had just seen was, in fact, literally a sample, and after commercial we got the director's cut. So yes, Velvet bitched for a long time. She got screwed in a Battle Royal.
This director.
Huh?
Yeah.
She got screwed in a Battle Royal because Madison, quote, inadvertently eliminated her. That's what she said.
God bless
Velvet. She was tired of being screwed. She had paid her dues, she said.
No. You really haven't.
Really haven't. So then out came Angelina, and eventually it was Sarita, I realized, not Winter. I can't only imagine why I would assume Angelina would be out there with Winter, the woman she's been teaming with for a year. So, a brawl broke out. It was awful. They beat her up for a while. Mickie James made the save, and they've been showing commercials for the website throughout the show, and the gimmick is they're doing some March Madness spoof, so it's all the girls in basketball uniforms. And Mickie runs up to make the save in a pastel blue and gold basketball uniform, and the heels called her Rainbow Bright.
So Angelina said, it's Rainbow Bright.
And as you noted,
I howled.
That was the only redeeming part of any of this. Rainbow Bright.
I thought that, like, John Cena was a whiny character with his crying about how Rock left. But I don't understand what the idea is here with the Velvet. I'm positive she's supposed to be a babyface. But she cried and whined and bitched and complained. Not even like in a babyface way, but in a totally heelish way. Then she gets beat up and double-teamed. Rainbow Bright makes a save. And then she's on the ground just pitching a fit. It brings to mind again. It is quite frankly amazing to have a girl who looks like Velvet, who's a babyface, so absolutely completely unlikable. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It takes talent to do that.
Pretty remarkable.
And I'm sure part of it is that, maybe her lines wouldn't have been so bad if she hadn't screamed and cried them in such a whiny manner. But this was a heel turn to me.
Well, sucks to be you then. She is not turning heel. Immortal confronted Garrett Bischoff backstage. Immortal, I remind you, consists of Eric Bischoff, Ric Flair, and Gunner. This is Flair doing all the talking, as it should be. Basically, he warned Garrett to never show up again, and Garrett vowed to be there for a match next week.
Flair was good here, but at the same time, it was not Flair's best promo.
It was.
He looked like, kind of like, I don't know. He just wasn't on his game. And I thought maybe it's just, they're too scared to go, Flair, can you do that one more time? Could you do it a little better? So they just took what they got.
Any more Ric Flair? Yeah. No, it was not memorable. Roode, Aries, and Bully Ray came out for a promo together. Basically, they all said they were done, like Sting's tweet. Bully said he and his calves were done. Roode said Sting was an authority figure, not an active wrestler. Ray said all his problems with Brandon Jacobs were actually Sting's fault because Sting let the football player in the building. Aries talked about how Sting was jealous of their championship and their moves. And they decided they were done, and they staged a sit-in. And they sat down in the ring, they crossed their legs, and they just sat there for a while. Crowd figured it out, chanted, "We want Sting." Lights went out, and they came back on. Sting was calmly kneeling in the ring. Bobby Roode threw a fantastic freak out. He wanted them to confirm that they were done. They emphatically agreed. He then pointed out he would have to strip them of their titles and also stop paying them. They changed their minds. I love wrestling.
This actually was a great segment.
This is a great segment. Yes.
Sting was great. All the guys were great. The segment made total sense.
It did.
And
I love that, and I mean this. I'm not being sarcastic here. I love that Austin Aries and Robert Roode thought they could quit the company and just take their championship belts with them.
Yes.
Which I guess has happened in wrestling a number of times, but
sure.
Yeah. So, yes, he informed them that they would not be paid if they quit, so they stopped quitting. And he also noted that Aries wanted to be in main events, so he's putting him in the main event tonight. Aries, Roode, and Ray versus Storm, Joe, and Magnus. Mm-hmm. This is a very fun segment, and it probably should have opened the show.
Good times.
This was good times. We got clips of Jesse Sorensen and his mom talking about the worst moments of his injury. They were both weeping.
And his life.
Actually, yes, it was the worst. I hope so. But yes, the worst moments of his life. They were both weeping. And then on a different day, with the sun shining and happier music, they vowed to get him back in the ring someday. And then we got clips of Zema Ion, in character obviously, saying he had no remorse for breaking Jesse's neck. It made him the top contender. He'd do it again if he had to. They had teased this earlier in the show, and I was very worried. But upon seeing it, I was not nearly as offended or bothered as I expected to be.
Yeah, I just didn't like it.
I don't know if, it may not be necessary.
It's not necessary.
It didn't help anything. I was expecting worse.
When the guy is, back, then...
Yes.
Fine.
Yes.
He's okay.
Yeah.
But I don't think, it's at least a year-long recovery, and he may not ever be able to wrestle again.
Exactly.
So it's very tasteless to be even in character, having a guy come out there and laugh and say he's going to go break more necks. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Wasn't a fan.
I may just have got a thick skin from hanging out in this business for too long. Zema Ion versus Shannon Moore. All of these matches were much longer than most. Actually, I was thinking at the time most Impact matches, but really most matches on Raw these days either. So they had trying to have a real match with a heat segment and then a comeback and a finish instead of just a bunch of spots and the guy gets pinned.
There were a bunch of spots, though.
There were, in fact, a bunch of spots. Not all of them were good. Particularly the one where Shannon was supposed to miss a moonsault, but Zema moved so ridiculously early that both guys looked silly. And Zema won with, and I'm quoting here from my own notes, some sort of move.
You don't need to say anything else.
Okay.
He won with some sort of move after executing a number of other moves.
Of some sort.
Of some sort, yes.
They showed fans talking about how great TNA live events were. We've talked before about Impact fans. They've not represented themselves well. These people were passionate and enthusiastic, but they were also like overly prepared to the point where I was thinking these are plants. These cannot be actual TNA fans. Basically cutting promos without a single mumble or stutter or no. They were cutting promos about how great the company was and how much fun they were having. And I was thinking, this is so terribly phony. And then at the end, one guy talked about how much he enjoyed it when someone would take 5 unprotected chair shots to the head.
Yeah, he goes, when I watch the NFL, I don't see anybody falling off a 20-foot cage or taking 5 chair shots to the head in a row. I was like, you put this geek on TV?
Yeah, this is not phony. This was a real fan. And they put him on TV. Angelina and Sarita versus Velvet and Mickie.
Let me start off here. I like how I always take center stage when talking about these women's matches on Impact, because I have so much to say.
There's a lot to say about this.
To be fair, Velvet did a comeback at the end, and it was fine.
Sure.
Per Velvet Sky standards.
No one fell down.
She was fine. Match itself, way too long. It's just way too long. I just didn't have the patience for it. It was not horrible. It was all right by women's match standards.
Here's the thing. Here's the reason it came off terribly long. Mickie for sure, and probably the other girls too, they figured out how goddamn awful Velvet Sky is. So they kept her on the apron for literally the entire match. Mickie started the match. Mickie got all the shine. They got the heat on Mickie. She would make mini comebacks where she had the opportunity to make a hot tag, but she just blatantly refused to. And only at the very end, when she had dragged it out as long as she possibly could, did they dare let Velvet in the ring.
And then her comeback was brief.
It was brief. If she hit a half dozen moves in this match, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, it was about that.
Yeah, so she won. She hit a pedigree and won, pinned Angelina. And it was not terrible.
In hindsight, quite frankly, it was fine.
The other two things to note about this match.
Unless you remind me of something I've forgotten.
So the heels come out, and then Mickie comes out, and then Velvet's music starts to play. And Mickie James starts to flap. That's all I can describe as what she was doing.
She did that. She flapped her wings at the beginning and at the end of the match.
Slowly, she was flapping her wings.
Her arms.
If you want to call it, well, they were her arms. But yes, she flapped them as a bird would flap its wings. And,
because birds are in the sky.
I suppose. That's the best I can think of.
I couldn't figure it out either.
So she starts to flap, and as she is flapping, Velvet comes out the top of the ramp all pissed off, and she does a power walk down to the ring. And as she goes down the ramp, she passes Mickie on Mickey's left. At the same time, Mickie turns to her right to find Velvet. So, literally, Velvet passed Mickie, and Mickie was too busy flapping to realize it. So, Velvet's in the ring fighting as Mickie is standing in the ramp, flapping and looking back up.
That's happened.
It's going to happen in TNA. Then,
I like Velvet's walk down to the ring and then her skip before she jumped inside.
Yes.
She was so mad she skipped into the ring.
Yes. So then Mike TNA starts reading like every headline off of TMZ. It was very strange hearing about Madonna and the Girls Gone Wild guy. And then he was doing it so much and plugging the website so much, I assumed this had to be a paid-for, very awkward plug. But, God, it was weird.
Yeah, match is fine.
Storm, Magnus, and Joe cut a promo. Actually, it was just Storm and Magnus. Storm said he would win the title at Lockdown, and Roode would get a taste of that tonight. And Magnus talked about how this was not about being a great team. Sting needed somebody to beat 3 guys up, and that sounded like fun. I like Magnus. Mike TNA told us that Abyss's family, the Parks,
yes,
they had sent Impact a letter asking where Abyss was.
Yeah.
They showed a video of Abyss's last appearance in TNA. And actually, when they showed this, I remembered it, which is mind-boggling. But Bully Ray
I honest to God hadn't noticed he was gone. I really hadn't. I'm not even kidding.
You know what's funny? I guess I really hadn't either, but I have noticed other people. Where the fuck is Rob Van Dam? What happened
they do.
to Mr. Anderson?
I noticed Mr. Anderson had some personal issues, but
all right.
I think I've noticed that too. I think what they do to save money is like they'll do a pay-per-view, and then for the next pay-per-view cycle, they'll bring like half the crew, and they'll do other things. They'll do their pay-per-view, and then for the next pay-per-view cycle, they'll leave that crew at home and bring another half in. So you constantly have guys that just like disappear completely for 4 weeks, and then are just back. But when
in theory, there's actually pluses to that plan. They're just handling it poorly.
I had not noticed Abyss was gone. I did not miss him. Nothing against the guy, but honest to God, I did not even know the guy was gone. And then when they realized and then when they said he'd been gone, I was like, yeah, I guess I haven't seen him for a while. And then they go, his last match was at Genesis. And I'm like, it's March 2nd. He's been gone for like 2 months. Didn't even notice.
I'm stunned you can remember when Genesis is.
I saw the graphic.
Genesis for me could be literally any time between January and December.
Well, it's January.
All right. So yes, if I don't think I actually mentioned this, but the last time we saw Abyss, he brawled with Bully Ray out a door into the outside world.
After he'd beaten him.
After beating him in a match. And later, an interviewer asked Bully Ray where Abyss was. Ray said he had no idea. Why should he know?
In a very creepy manner.
He said it in a way where what he really meant was, I paid 6 guys to murder him.
He's washing blood off his hands, too.
I didn't even catch that.
Mm-hmm.
We had our great main event.
And I do love that the Parks haven't seen their baby boy in 2 months, but they're not going to the cops.
No.
They're going to TNA.
They're going to Mike TNA.
Which, by the way, means that the Parks also didn't notice Abyss was gone this entire time. They didn't notice when he didn't come home the next day.
As I recall, their family is a little, it's less than ideal.
That's right. His dad was shot, right?
Something like that.
Can't remember. But the remainder of the Park family, they just now realized, wait a second, where's Chris been at?
Where's Chris Abyss?
Have you seen Chris? Have you heard from him lately?
Oh, God.
He's been quiet.
He has. He's been keeping a low profile.
They should have written to the UWF. Maybe it's the same place Rashi Brown is.
Dead?
6 feet under. In Davy Jones's locker. Was that unacceptable?
I don't. Why would it be?
Well, Davy Jones just passed away.
Yeah, right. I guess that is now.
Yeah,
I guess you can't see that anymore.
Anyway, move on.
We had our great main event. Robert Roode, Bully Ray, and Austin Aries versus James Storm, Magnus, and Samoa Joe. I mean, I could sum this up in like 3 sentences.
It was awesome. 3 words.
Even better, yeah. It was very simple. It was very basic. They got the heat on Joe. Storm made a hot tag that was better than Velvet Skies. It was a parade of finishers, and finally Storm hit a super kick on Roode and pinned him.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
I remember you say that you couldn't have a 6-man on Raw without it being great. Now, the streak may be on for Impact.
Sure.
The operative word being man. I don't need to see a 6-woman main event with Velvet running wild.
No.
That will kill the streak immediately.
There's no buys.
But this was a 6-man tag in the main event. Austin Aries at the beginning was awesome. They got the heat on Joe. Joe made a big comeback, as you noted, the parade of finishers, I believe you called them.
That's a term I use.
And then Storm hit the lung blower, or maybe it's the code breaker, one or the other. And then Roode staggered in a big circle. Storm super kicked him. Gum flew high in the air. Storm pinned him. This whole thing was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
This, I could go back and I could cry and moan and bitch about things up and down the show. But this main event, I am an easy man to please. You give me a main event like this, and I will forgive everything you did on the rest of the show. And that's what they did here. So I give this Impact a thumbs up, thanks to the great main event that we had on this program. A great professional wrestling match. Everything made sense. Good finish. Everything was great.
And there's more. That's not a bad thing. Bully Ray grabbed a chair. He laid out the baby faces. Then he stood over Storm, saying, "You're not even going to make it to lockdown. I'm going to take you out, and I'm going to challenge Bobby Roode myself." So, that sets up another match. Again,
right.
Everything on this show happens for a reason now.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
Not always good, but at least it all happens for a reason.
Yes. It all feels like part of a larger picture rather than chaos and disorder.
Sure.
So we saw Garrett Bischoff arriving at the building. He said he appreciated Ric Flair's warning, but he was his own man, and they would not keep him from being there. Then Immortal came down to the ring. I reminded you at this point, Immortal consists of 3 men, only one of whom wrestles. Bischoff said he had asked Sting to book Gunner and a partner versus Garrett and a partner, quote, to put an end to this saga. He thanked Flair for warning Garrett to stay away. He knew Flair had Garrett's best interest at heart. But the match was going on. He said Gunner would have no trouble finding a partner because everyone wanted to kick Garrett's ass. At this point, to their surprise, Kurt Angle's music played. Bischoff and Gunner were overjoyed. And Angle came out. He said he hated Garrett because Garrett did not respect his father. Everyone was happy, so the heel team was made. This segment. We had a segment with Joker, Sting, and Eric Young. Do I need to go into more detail? It was also long.
I haven't listened to a word you've said. Where are we?
Joker, Sting, and Eric Young.
Oh, this sucked. We don't need to talk anymore about this.
It was awful and long.
Yeah.
ODB and Eric Young versus Gail and Madison.
Remember when Sting was like the Joker for months? And then like all of a sudden he wasn't the Joker? And it was like, God damn, he's so much better when he's not the Joker.
Yep.
Now he's the Joker again.
Yep.
Unacceptable.
Yep.
All right, go on.
So, TNA continues to book matches where women wrestle men, even though women are not really allowed to wrestle men. So they kept Eric on the apron the entire time. He got the hot tag, and he immediately locked up with the ref.
Yeah.
Then he stripped while the girls hit him. Then Madison hit him in the back, mind you, with a title belt. This knocked him unconscious, but he fell forward on top of Gail, who was unable to move, could only squirm beneath him, and the ref counted 3. At this point, you said, quote, "This absolutely sucked."
Mm-hmm. I don't think you've done enough justice to that pinfall. I hate to be lewd on this program, so I won't say what I'm thinking of saying. But he copulated.
He impregnated her?
Yes, inseminated Gail Kim.
Well, that would be a finish.
Where's my cymbal crash?
With them.
You've turned this show around. I don't know how. And by around, I mean a full 360.
I don't even know anymore. I have lost all track of what is good and what is bad. No, that's not true. Impact is bad. So, yeah, Eric and ODB are now the Knockout Tag Champs. Eric Young is the Girls Tag Team Champion. If you care, you suck.
Wow.
So, Eric's in his underwear at this point. He pulls out a ring. He gets down on one knee, and they go to commercial. That's the cliffhanger. So they come back. Eric says they are young and in love, and they just got their own studio apartment. The audience, many of whom no doubt live in studio apartments of their own, applauded this move. That was funny. So ODB took the ring, acted like she did not know what to do, and then she got down on one knee, and Eric said yes, and he did a lap around the ring, and they made out on the mat. And that was that. So, yes, they're knockout tag champs, and they're going to get married.
The gimmick is that they're going to get married, but that Eric Young is going to play the girl.
Yeah.
Ha ha! Ha ha ha!
And they're still going to wrestle girls, even though he can't do anything. They showed footage from earlier in the day of a man checking in with TNA security. The man identified himself as Joseph Parks. He claimed to be... Well, actually, he didn't say anything here. He just said his name was Joseph Parks. And they checked him in, and I thought, hey... It's Chris Abyss's dad or something. Bully Ray cut a promo on James Storm. He said he was going to stop Storm from going to lockdown.
Chris Parks was bespectacled, hair slicked back.
Wearing a suit. Polite gentleman.
Very polite gentleman. Well spoken.
For a moment or two, I actually thought, hey, is that Penn Jillette? And the answer is no, but that gives you an idea what we're dealing with here. Austin Aries was alerted via email that he had to defend his title against Zema Ion tonight. Then he got a promo.
What if he hadn't checked his email?
I don't know.
Sting was too busy cutting promos on himself in a goddamn mirror.
Yeah, that's what happened. So, Aries then cut a promo that had to be a rib on us. Aries looked into the camera and said he could not believe that TNA would give a title match away for free instead of saving it on a pay-per-view, or saving it for the pay-per-view. Now, he explained, there is no reason for people to spend their hard-earned money on that show. This is word for word what Austin Aries told us, the viewer at home.
That's what we said.
This is anti-promotion.
Don't look at me, homie.
He explained why we should not buy the pay-per-view. Austin Aries wrestled Zema Ion. They're having a good match. Then they did a finish of sorts. There was a wacky ref bump. Ion grabbed his hairspray. Austin countered the hairspray by ducking. Then he grabbed the hairspray. Many seconds had passed, but Austin perhaps thought the referee had been killed. He sprayed Zema Ion right in the eyes. The ref saw this and called for the DQ.
That is exactly what happened.
The Penn Jillette-looking guy from the earlier segment, he was now backstage walking around. I guess if you check in security, you can just go in the women's dressing room and stuff. He approached Velvet Sky, asking about his brother. And she was confused. He says, "You know my brother, Chris Abyss." That's what he said.
Yeah.
Chris Abyss. That's his character name now. Velvet did not know Abyss had a brother. Chris said, yeah, he's missing. Do you know where he is? And Velvet said, no. And he left, and she said, you learn something new every day.
Chris Parks is my new favorite character. Or no.
Joseph Parks.
Joe Parks.
Joseph Parks. Velvet is no good.
He's really bad at acting.
Goes without saying. Bully Ray came out. He bragged about beating up James Storm. He demanded Sting come out and make him the number one contender. I want Bobby Roode, he said. Joker Sting came out, was the most annoying man you've ever seen. I was begging for Bully Ray to kill him. I didn't get it. He said, if you want Bobby Roode, you got Bobby Roode. And Ray was so happy he offered to let Sting touch his calves. Sting declined. And he made the match right after the break. I was 100% certain that he was going to get Bobby Roode in a match as his tag team partner. I was mistaken. When they came back from commercial, Roode and Sting were screaming at each other. Sting told him their title is not on the line, but you do have to go wrestle him. So yes, they delivered Bully Ray versus Bobby Roode. Thank God two people on the show know what they're doing. Very good match. Where Roode, first he didn't want to wrestle. Then Ray beat him up for a while. And Roode got pissed and he slapped Bubba across the face. This only served to piss Bubba off more. So Roode worked him over for a while. Bubba made his big comeback. The chain got involved. Then James Storm hit the ring. Bully Ray, who is still a heel, fled. And so Storm laid out Roode with a super kick. I have no idea what the finish was. I have no idea if the bell even rang.
I haven't seen anything about this and probably wasn't serious. But if you watch when Storm hits the ring and I think it's Bully bails and he hits the ropes, but looks like he just totally tweaks his knee. And then he's kind of walking a little weird afterwards, so I presume he's fine. But if it turns out he's hurt, that's probably where it happened.
Morgan and Crimson were getting dressed in the locker room when Joseph Parks walked up. He introduced himself, and they all just shook hands. Mm-hmm. That looked gay. So they didn't know where Abyss was either. And somewhere in here I realized, in fact, who Joseph Parks was.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to even say this because I feel like I'm giving away a spoiler. It took me 3 segments to realize Joseph Parks was Abyss.
Yes.
I've been watching Abyss almost 10 years. I have seen him talk. I have seen him walk. And he was on the show cutting promos for several segments before I realized, hey, that's Abyss.
Yeah.
And the only reason I think I've even figured out here is that he was like taller than Crimson.
Once you mentioned it, all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, the voice.
Yeah.
Then I was looking at his forehead and I was like, how about that?
That's fucking Abyss.
That's Abyss, everybody.
Yes. So he was very polite. He asked if they knew where Abyss was. They said no. They didn't recognize him either. It's amazing. All it took was a pair of glasses and a suit and combed hair and not wearing a mask. And you couldn't tell who he was. Part of me hopes that the angle is that it's Abyss pretending to be his own brother. And part of me hopes that they couldn't find an actor who looked like Abyss, so they just told him to put a suit on.
Yeah.
Matt Morgan and Crimson versus...
I can't wait till the day they team up.
and Robbie E. and Robbie T. The Robbies now have matching tight pink cardigan sweaters. Awesome. You can now add Rob Terry to the list of men who is better than Matt Morgan. I think I said the same thing about Crimson earlier. I'm not sure now if everyone else is getting better or if Morgan's actually getting worse, which is a scary concept. So he hit the carbon footprint on Robbie E.
I think people are getting better and Morgan is just stagnant.
Yeah, that's the optimistic way to look at it. So yes, Morgan hit the carbon footprint on Robbie E. As he hit the move, Crimson tagged himself in and stole the pin, and this made them mad. Why?
Because they've been feuding.
Why are you upset that you won?
They're both jealous of each other.
I hate this.
Well, Vinny, while you're steaming, do me a favor and shut that window over there. The whole neighborhood has now learned about Lurch.
And Jay Mansfield.
Yes. I have neighbors Googling Jane Mansfield right now, which is fine. They may thank me for it in the morning, but just to be safe. Oh, well. I don't care. I'm just trying to be a friendly neighbor.
We'll start the show over.
Okay, ready? Go on.
Where were we here? Oh. Okay, so we went from a team that is breaking up because they won, which always sucks, to my new favorite team, and they haven't even wrestled yet, Gunner and Kurt Angle. They're backstage. Gunner is cutting this great promo, putting Kurt over, talking about all of everything he's done. Gold medal winner, multiple-time world champion, kicked everyone's ass. He finishes up, and Angle says, all those great things he said about me, they're all true. And I think he left some things out. And Gunner says, probably. He looks down at the ground.
Gunner is awesome.
Gunner is awesome.
Remember we hated Gunner and Murphy?
Yeah.
In hindsight, it was probably mostly Murphy.
I think it's pretty clear.
Gunner's awesome.
And to be fair, the fact that he is still known as either Gunner or Immortals Gunner.
Or the Intense Gunner.
The Intense Gunner. Not Kurt Angle.
No.
The Intense Gunner. So yes, this is the best team in wrestling now. We got some bullshit with Chris Daniels and Kazarian and AJ. Here's what I got out of this segment. 1, AJ has his same theme song remixed for like the 93rd time. Still has the same stupid lyrics. 2, the company's 10th anniversary is coming up. That's depressing. 3, Bully Ray was apparently once part of something called the Frontline.
Yeah, you don't remember that?
No.
You don't remember the Frontline?
I literally have no memory of the Frontline. AJ threw this out there like, wow, remember he was in the Frontline? That was weird. I thought, the fuck is the Frontline?
It was like the TNA Originals against the Frontline or some stupid faction
I don't
battle.
believe you.
It's true.
I don't know. I have zero And I mean zero memory of this. And please, do not remind me.
Well, you're about to be reminded.
You fucker. So Daniels and Kaz came out. They all bitched at each other about friendship and enemies and betrayal. And Kaz said it was AJ's fault that everyone turned on him. And AJ said Kaz was the reason he wasn't going to have friends anymore. He was only going to hang out with assholes. So Mr. Anderson came out. They had a fight. And the babyfaces, I guess, won.
Trying desperately to find information about the front line.
We had the main event. The best team in the world, Gunner and Kurt Angle versus Garrett Bischoff and Jeff Hardy. This was a long match.
Oh, by the way, one other thing before I get to the front line, which, by the way, apparently took place over the course of an entire year that you were watching this show, 2008 and 2009. But anyway, it appears they've completely dropped the storyline that Daniels has something on Kazarian.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, like, there was no mention of it here. Kazarian was just mad at AJ.
Yeah.
Anyway, the front line, Styles and Joe formed a faction of younger wrestlers. Jay Lethal, Consequences Creed, Petey Williams, Eric Young, ODB, and the Motor City Machine Guns, which later would be collectively known as TNA Frontline, and they were feuding with the Main Event Mafia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hell of a stable.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the front line.
I felt better having forgotten. So we had a long tag match here. Went through a commercial. Easily 10 minutes, maybe more. And they kept Garrett Bischoff on the apron literally the entire time.
Yes.
It's a good thing that Gunner and Kurt and Jeff can all wrestle. Because that's all they did. They did the heat on Jeff for a long time. I was dreading this hot tag. He finally got it. It started off okay, especially if you like clotheslines. Then he almost killed Kurt Angle with a flapjack. And he started throwing ugly drop kicks. And then he did a double clothesline that hit both men in the chest. At this point, Hardy pinned Angle with the senton. I've seen worse.
It's a very well-timed finish. He hit the double clothesline. They both took a bump. He landed on his face. And as he was hitting the ropes, did the double clothesline, Jeff made a tag. And then immediately when Angle bumped, Jeff came off the top with a senton, got the pin.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Thank God they kept Garrett out of the ring for the whole time.
They know what they're doing.
Garrett was like, when I watch Garrett wrestle, it's like, I remember when I was doing that in 1998, in like my fourth match, when it was time for a comeback, and I did as many moves as I could, as fast as I could, and got completely blown up in 30 seconds.
Yes.
He was gasping for air after like this 30-second comeback, because it was like, clothesline, run, hit the corner, run.
Yes, he would not let them feed him.
No.
He went to get them.
No pausing for dramatic effect. No pausing to let the big spot sink in. Just move. Breathe hard. Gasp. Wait for Sting. Or whatever his name is. Jeff Hardy. All these face-painted miscreants.
That was Impact.
Everybody. I like the main event. Jeff Hardy's great babyface in peril. They did a good job with him. Kurt Angle and Gunner are awesome. And the finish was good. And they kept Garrett out of it for most of the time. I don't know how Garrett's going to get any better standing on the apron for 10-minute matches.
Well, I don't either.
They better be putting him on the road with... quite frankly, he should be working match with Ric Flair on the road. That's what I say. Then he'll learn how to work. We got Impact to talk about.
You got Impact.
Which actually was a much better show than usual this week.
Much better than last week.
Compared to last week, anything would have been. But sadly, there was only one appearance of Joe Parks.
Yes, a waste of their best their best thing.
No wonder he was so disappointed on Twitter. He was disappointed on Twitter, Vinny.
I see.
You know what's funny about Joe Parks?
A lot
of things, but... So this Joe Parks fella... Presumably, he never had a Twitter before because his account was just opened last week.
Mm-hmm.
He's tweeted 10,000 times in the last week. So he discovered it and just went nuts.
Guess he's got some free time.
Yeah, I need to get Joe Parks on the show, and we can have a discussion with him and Dave about how much Twitter sucks. Because in all of those tweets, he still hasn't got any further information on the whereabouts of his brother Chris. And it's too bad.
That is too bad.
A man like that shouldn't work so hard with so little payoff. All right.
So Impact.
Go ahead here, Vinny.
James Storm came out in street clothes. He was... Okay, I was confused. Who's he wrestling in this next pay-per-view?
Good start.
I could have sworn that at the next pay-per-view he was wrestling Bubba Ray.
I think so, yes.
He comes out here and he starts cutting a promo on Bobby Roode for a match at Lockdown.
Yeah.
Which is the next pay-per-view.
That is correct.
She spent the whole time out there talking about that. So Bully Ray came out, and I'm thinking the point of his promo is going to be, you're looking past me, James Storm. We have a match on Sunday. I don't think he said this. I think they just jibber-jabbered for a bit. Storm wanted to fight.
They jabberwockied.
Ray wanted to not fight. He called out Gunner instead. Gunner and James Storm had a brawl, and security broke it up. It wasn't a bad segment, but it was confusing.
Well, they got 2 pans of fish to...
No, finish this metaphor.
I can't.
All right.
I started, and I just short-circuited.
2 pans of fish, you say?
I couldn't even begin. You know what's funny? It's last week on the show.
Funnier than 2 pans of fish?
Last week on the show, somebody on the board had the temerity to say that Bryan used the "I'm tired" excuse. It's 1:11 a.m.
Why do we do the show so late?
I don't know.
Let's do the show at Impact
it
starts
don't work
at 9.
like that.
Why not?
Impact starts at 9.
So let's just start the show at 10.
Well, we normally start around 10.
No.
Let's move on.
Gail
I feel if we started at 10, Granny would talk for 2 hours.
You may have a point.
Yes.
Gail and Madison were bickering in a hallway. They ran into Sting. Sting booked Gail against Mickie James and Madison against Velvet Sky.
Oh, God.
One of these matches sounds horrendous. And then we got it. Madison Rayne wrestled Velvet Sky.
It was, in fact, horrendous.
No. I expected horrendous going in, and I was disappointed I did not get... It was not good enough to be horrendous. It was much worse than horrendous.
Velvet has achieved a level of...
Velvet Sky on this evening was simply the worst wrestler in America.
She said this before.
No, not like this. Everything she did looked bad. Everything she did looked phony embarrassing, where you felt bad for her. You're just sitting there cringing on the couch watching her perform.
You know what? I'm going to give some honest-to-God advice for Velvet Sky. Because I can't bring myself to make fun of her for being awful anymore. It's reached new depths. What I think that Velvet needs to do is she needs to take some sort of combat class, some sort of martial arts class. She needs to take some karate and some jiu-jitsu and some kickboxing. Mostly kickboxing after watching this match.
Her strikes were...
Oh my God, these elbows. Oh my...
The elbows.
God, these elbows. Or forearms, whatever they were supposed to be. You know what she did? She did the thing, but worse. Remember that one day when Richie Magnet went backstage at PNPW, and he walked up to you, and he was our friend.
Yeah.
And he very calmly said, Vinny, whatever that was that you were doing with your arm, don't ever do it again.
That's right. And you know what? I didn't.
She did something with her arm that made what you did with your arm look like a Mike Tyson knockout punch.
Yeah.
She needs to go and hit a bag. She needs to go and grapple with people. I suggest jiu-jitsu because I don't like the idea of turning her loose in a high school wrestling room. But the point is,
it's a terrible idea.
She needs to hit things, and I got to be careful how I say this. I won't say it. She needs to hit things, and she needs to grapple. That's the bottom line. She needs to do stuff that's real so that she has an understanding of how to do it when it's not real and make it look something resembling real.
Yes, she needs...
Because right now it looks... Listen, when I was 14 years old, I got VHS videotapes of me and my friends doing fake pro wrestling.
Yeah.
We wrestled circles around Velvet Sky.
God, yes.
Inside out, backwards, and upside down. And we had absolutely no training, and we were little kids, and we'd been doing this for no time whatsoever.
And you were not getting paid, and you're not on national cable television.
No. hit some stuff, grapple around, feel what it's like to actually have. It's like Lance when he says to his students, "I'm going to get in referee's position, and all I want you to do is try to put me on my back." That's the lesson she needs to learn. Someone needs to get on all fours and go, "Velvet, if you put me on my back, I'll do this, and I'll put up my own money. Velvet, if you can put me on my back, I'll give you $1,000. And have her fight to try to put someone on their back. And then bring in a bag, one of those big water-filled bags, and just go, take your forearm, let me show you how to throw an elbow, and I want you to hit this thing 100 times as hard as you can. And then throw a kick like this and kick this bag as hard as you can 100 times. Now let's try going and do this fake match again and see if we can make it look a little bit better. Something must be done."
And we haven't even gotten to the running.
Oh, my God!
She took we counted once when she hit the ropes. It took her, I believe, 5 steps to get halfway across the ring. Keep in mind, all the way across the ring is supposed to be 3 steps. But there was a point earlier when she ran to the corner where it had to be 8. She just step. So, yes. After the match, God, what exactly to say? Oh, Madison got the win. She won by reversing a cradle and pulling the tights.
And Madison did everything she could.
In the process, Madison almost revealed Velvet's ass, but not quite, which means there's absolutely nothing good to see here. And, yeah, Madison, you're like, Madison looked good. And I said, no, she just looked by far better than Velvet Sky. This was a low point.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I don't think there's anything else bad on the show, actually. Matt Morgan and Crimson had a meeting. There was some tension, but they were still on the same page. They agreed to win the tag titles on Sunday. Had Samoa Joe versus Crimson.
This was awesome. Let me preface this.
All right.
I realize I don't really have a new regime. We just got rid of Russo. But I like how when Joe and Magnus were the challengers for the tag titles, leading up to the match, they did the singles matches, where it was like so-and-so versus Crimson and so-and-so versus the other guy. Anyway, point is, the champs were winning these matches.
Every single time.
So now the tables are turned, and now Magnus and Joe are the champs, and Morgan and Joe are challenging for the titles. So now the challengers are beating the champions in singles matches. It's like...
The point of this feud...
Joe and Magnus cannot catch a break, except for the one time they won the titles.
Yes, this feud is about 100-1 in favor of the Giants. It's just that the 1 was the time they won the tag titles.
Yes.
Austin Aries came out for a promo. The first half of this segment was so great. He comes out in his suit. Music's playing. He's got champagne with him. He says, in the history of this company, there have been 53 different X Division reigns.
I was astonished. Especially when they said there were 25 champions.
25 different
champions?
men have been X Division champion. Has it been 10 years this company's been around yet? 8 or 9?
10 years in June.
10 years in June. 2.5 new champions each year. 5 title changes every year. Over a decade.
Yeah, that's a WWE title.
That's probably true, too, actually.
Yeah, so, let's be fair.
You're right. So,
and at least there are 25 different champions as opposed to the WWE title.
The same 4 guys.
The same guy 12 times over and over.
That's probably a good point, actually. Although, Aries then did say that he announced he had set the record for longest reigning X Division champion of all time at 180-some days.
Yeah.
At least at points, John Cena was champion for almost a year.
That was Bruno Sammartino's Italian Vacation in 1968.
Yes. So, he had a music video of himself destroying everyone. If you watch the video he did with Alex Shelley for that one rock band, it was a re-edited version of that. Cool looking video. He's brain-bustering dude. He's kissing his belt. He's posing, looking awesome. And then they cut back to the ring where they are showing the video, and Austin Aries is in the ring dancing to the music.
Yes.
This was fantastic.
It's awesome.
He thanked all the men he had beaten. He toasted himself. And then Zema Ion interrupted. Last week, Zema talked about Jesse Sorenson's injury and said he'd do it again if he had to, and I said it was not as offensive as it sounded. This week was much worse. Zema Ion said that Aries should hand the title over right now, or what happened to Jesse Sorenson would happen to Aries.
Yeah.
Now it's a gimmick. He then said he wasn't just effing pretty, That is a quote. He was pretty effing dangerous. Effing. He threw his champagne in Aries' face, and so Austin Aries just sprayed the entire bottle of champagne in Ion's face, grabbed him by the head with one hand, and very casually tossed him out of the ring. What a geek.
If Zema Ion wins the title, I'm going to be petrified and appalled. But after watching this, I presume he's going to, because Austin Aries made him look like such a fool. Such a complete numbskull.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it immensely. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But he made him look like a complete dunderhead. A doofus.
We had what was sadly the only appearance of Joe Park Esquire. Great waste of talent here. Joe Park met with Gunner backstage.
Joe Park met with Gunner.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Joe asked Gunner if he knew where Abyss was. Gunner replied that he had a match and didn't have time to talk. He passed by, and Park looked at him thoughtfully.
That's what happened.
Wasn't sure what to make of this Gunner fellow.
I'm sad that he got cut from 3 segments to 1 this week.
It was like 20 seconds.
Yeah. He was very disappointed on Twitter.
I'll have to go check this out.
Yeah. He was disappointed with the lack of help from his friends at the Impact Zone. Let me read some of Joe Park's tweets.
Yeah, you do that.
All right, you go on.
Eric Young and ODB were planning their wedding. They were talking about where it should be. They suggested a VFW, a bowling alley, or a state fair, any of which would have been a great skit. But instead, Eric looked down at his wedding ring, and he said, "That's it! The ring! We should get married in the ring!" They talked about having their first date in the ring, their first kiss in the ring. ODB said the first time they fucked was in the ring. So finally Eric said...
Actually, she just held up her fist lewdly.
Yeah, it was implied the first time they boned. But Eric finally said, "We'll get married in the ring. Nothing can go wrong." I laughed. You know how long it's been since I laughed at Eric Young?
Poor Joe Park's only got 1,300 followers. Much fewer than my 6,000. At Brian Alvarez, Twitter. Anyway, I had not noticed this tweet until I was looking through them here. It's from Joseph Park. "I've been informed by some of you on Twitter that some famous wrestlers are from Chicago. CM Punk and Colt Cabana. Are they good?" The gimmick is he's a lawyer from Chicago, everybody.
I see.
All right, let's see what he had to say about Impact here tonight. I'll just read a few of them here. All right. He says, and he's tweeting everybody here. He did a lot of requests here. All right, here we go. "Back at the hotel. Disappointed in the answers I'm getting from the stars of Impact Wrestling. More questioning is coming. Hashtag where is Abyss?" He says, "I'm trying to not get down because of my search for my brother Chris. I just look in the mirror and remind myself to hashtag smile Joseph Park." He mentions here when responding to somebody, "Glad there's a lot less hate on Twitter. Now a late night snack and bed." And his final tweet for the evening, "Good night, friends on Twitter."
What a kind man.
He's a very friendly fella. For those of you not following him, he is at Joseph Park _ESQ.
I am not. Why am I not following him? I'll follow him right now.
I don't know.
I've direct messaged him before.
Yes, you have. He's been looking for information, Vinny, and you didn't give him anything good.
I had nothing to. I had no promising leads.
Yeah, it's too bad. All right, let's move on.
I also
here.
see. So while I'm checking this out, someone has sent me a tweet. Garrett Bischoff, Rookie of the Year 2012.
No,
that's what it says.
That's funny.
The answer is, in fact, no.
The answer is that's not who the Rookie of the Year is going to be this year.
Speaking of, Kurt Angle cut a promo on Garrett. He called him Bitchoff repeatedly, which, isn't that the entire family's name? Aren't you also insulting Eric when you say this? He said Sunday would be Jeff Hardy's last match because he hated him. He was in quite a mood here.
Thrasher texted me apparently on Twitter. "Thanks for the mentions on BNV. 1980 Hulk still rules. This guy just don't give up.
In a quick video of Sting, he was out of character, saying that he might be any of his personalities on Sunday, the surfer guy from the 90s, or the Crow, or the crazy guy he's been lately.
Yeah.
Mickie and Gail had a match.
It was a good match.
It was much better than the other women's match. Much better. They tried to do a finish where Gail hit a belt shot while the ref was holding Mickie back. The ref wasn't quite in position. Didn't look very good, but otherwise, good match. Gail got the win. There was something else terrible on the show. Mr. Anderson.
All right, listen, everybody. I'm a fair man. I've said this a million times. I am a fair man. So let me recap this segment briefly. Mr. Anderson's back. We'll get the bad news out of the way first. He's chubby. He's been off for 3 months. He's had some personal problems. He has not been in the gym regularly during that period. He's a little tubby around the midsection. He also got into the ring, and in the very first spot, there was an inadvertent headbutt between Chris Daniels and Mr. Anderson, and Daniels was cut open under the eye and bleeding all over. Now, granted, to be fair, this could have been Christopher Daniels' fault. However, in all the matches I have ever seen in the history of Chris Daniels, I've never seen him inadvertently hit someone during an attack with his own head, and I've seen Mr. Anderson inadvertently hurt people several times.
Here's what happened. You're also skipping the promo.
I was upstairs.
No, you weren't.
I was. The Mr. Anderson promo?
Anderson and Daniels and Kazarian.
Oh my God, that sucked.
Yes.
Oh, that sucked. Mr. Anderson has turned the channel heat with me when he talks.
The other guys were not any better.
But let me just finish my speech here. All that bad news out of the way. This was the best Mr. Anderson match I've seen in like a year. I realize that's not saying a whole lot, maybe even 2 years. But he was perfectly fine in this match, and even pretty good. He was grappling Chris Daniels, mind you. But Mr. Anderson was perfectly fine in the ring on this show, aside from the inadvertent headbutt spot.
They were working at a fast pace. He did not get blown up despite his excess body weight.
Looked good.
He still had his cool spinning kick combo.
But that damn promo that they cut before this match was horrendous.
It was heel heat for all three of them.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, when first you're like, how did Daniels get bloody already? We went back and watched it, and we saw what happened. And Anderson got in the ring. Daniels ran up, hit him with a forearm in the back, and then Anderson plunked Daniels in the head. And you said, well, way to go, Mr. Anderson, or something like that. And I said, well, wait a minute here. He had his back to Daniels. He didn't know where Daniels was. Just an accident. The more I thought about this, as you pointed out, seeing Daniels wrestle a lot of guys without having them hit him in the head. And Anderson has a track record for this kind of thing. And then what actually happened? Daniels hit Anderson in the back, and Anderson sold it by throwing his own head backwards. That's no good.
Yeah. But again, the match was good.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good match.
It was. Kurt Angle versus Garrett Bischoff in a 5-minute challenge, which is hysterical because easily 90% of all Impact matches don't go 5 minutes anyway.
And the main event was approximately 3 minutes and 42 seconds.
Yes. A 5-minute challenge on Impact is an Ironman match. So, Kurt beat him up forever. He, about 30 seconds left, he went for the Angle slam. Garrett slipped out and shoved him out of the ring. And Angle got back in and got kicked once. And he finally hit the slam, but he hit it right as the clock expired. So Garrett won. Angle punched the ref. He put Garrett in the ankle lock. Hardy ran out to make the save.
Yeah, this did 0 for Garrett Bischoff.
Didn't do much for Kurt Angle either.
But you know what? I do have to say. It could be worse. He could just be going out there and beating guys. At least the storyline at this point in his career is he's a dude that takes a beating and he never gives up.
He's Colin Delaney.
He's supposed to be a babyface, so it could be worse, everybody. Could be worse. But this is doing him no favors, nor is it teaching him how to work.
Robbie E and Robbie T cut a promo backstage. Robbie E said he would have an open challenge for the pay-per-view, but he thought nobody would accept. Because they're scared.
I hope Chris Ryzik accepts one of these days.
I do too. That'd be a fun match.
Mm-hmm.
Gunner wrestled James Storm. Orton wrestled somebody on Raw. I think it was Jack Swagger. But I mentioned how it was the simplest match in the world, where there was a heat segment, a comeback, and then the finish. No back and forth, no near falls, just...
Yep, that's what this was.
This was more of the same, and that's good. Gunner got the heat on him. Storm made his comeback. Storm hit his finisher and won. Thumbs up! Bully Ray came out in the ramp. He shouted at Storm for a while. I still am not totally sure if they're having a match Sunday or not.
They are.
Okay.
I think. I'm 99%.
They did run down the card at one point.
Positive.
We fast forwarded because it's Impact and we don't care. Main event contract signing. Sting and Roode came out for this. Actually, I take it back. They showed a hype video recapping the entire storyline, and then when the hype video ended, Sting and Roode were just in the ring sitting down at a table.
James Storm versus Bully Ray is in fact a match.
All right. So Roode was about to sign. Started cutting a promo. It was a good promo. It was a long promo. He talked about being a fan of Sting growing up, but now Sting was hanging around and hogging the spotlight.
Hold on a second. Go to Wikipedia and Google Victory Road 2012. It's actually a pretty funny poster. Maybe I'm just easily amused today.
Road 2012. Would help if I spelled it right.
Yeah. R-O-A-D.
I have seen the poster.
It's a pretty good poster. I've seen a lot worse in wrestling.
That's true. This is better than... It's a picture of Sting, and half of him is normal Sting with sunglasses, and the other half is crazy goofball Sting. This is much better than the Royal Rumble poster that has Santino as a wizard.
In a mugshot, it appears.
Yes.
The tagline, half crazy. That's what it says.
Maybe that's a giveaway.
Oh, my God.
That is what the...
Oh, my God. Don't read this. Let me read it to you. Victory Road will feature professional wrestling matches that involve different wrestlers from pre-existing scripted feuds and storylines. Wrestlers portray villains, heroes, or less distinguishable characters in these scripted events that build tension and culminate in a wrestling match or a series of matches. That's fucking funny.
Huh.
I laugh.
I do too.
Uproariously.
Or what was it? Less distinguishable?
Less distinguishable characters. Which, by the way, you can click on. And it takes you to Tweener.
Oh, God.
Hate that word. All right. Go ahead.
So Roode's cutting this promo about how he grew up watching Sting, but now Sting was old and hogging the spotlight and the business had passed him by. He said, when he said this, by the way, when he said the business has passed you by, I thought, hey, me too. So Sting's just sitting there listening, taking it all in. Roode starts making fun of him for having nothing to say. He's about to leave when Sting stood up. He flipped the table over, started smearing makeup on his face. Roode said the paint didn't scare him, so Sting put paint on Roode's face. They got in a brawl. Sting won the fight, kept putting paint on Roode's face. It ended with Sting celebrating in the ring as his music played as Roode laid in the aisle with makeup all over his face and on his nice fancy suit. It was a fine go-home segment. Roode's promo was very good.
I liked it a lot. And, by the way, in the WrestleMania 28 Wikipedia article, they don't add indistinguishable characters. They merely mention heroes and villains. Anyway, about the main event segment, Velvet Sky needs to watch Sting. Because Sting sat in a chair for 90% of this promo, and Bobby Roode is saying all these mean things about him. And was Sting overacting or showing the wide eyes or gasping or doing any of that? No. He sat stone cold still, and he just stared straight ahead with a blank face. That's all he needed to do. Velvet Sky took a turnbuckle, and it was like she had been impaled on a spike. It's just a corner. It's fucking padded.
She put her hand on her back, and she threw her head back, and She wailed in agony, and then as soon...
You know what she did? She swooned.
She did, actually.
She hit the corner, and she swooned.
There was frankly, something erotic about this. But in this case, that's really not positive. And then as soon as Madison Rayne got back within striking distance, she attacked.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, Velvet oversold and then completely stopped.
Sting was awesome in this last segment, doing absolutely nothing. You know what else is awesome with that? Shawn Michaels.
True.
Shawn Michaels doesn't have... I mentioned this before on the show. Many years ago. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but you ever seen the movie, Interview with the Vampire?
I did, actually, finally, yes.
All right. And Brad Pitt is one of the vampires, right?
Yeah.
And I know this is spoiler, so if you don't want to hear what happened in a movie from 20 years ago, plug your ears. There's a scene where the girl gets turned to ash, essentially. Right?
Sure.
Okay, anyway. He comes out of the room, and he's walking amongst all of these other vampires, and they're all laughing at him because his beloved has just been turned to ash, which is apparently traumatizing. But anyway, I think it was Anne Rice who wrote all of these books. She was blown away by this scene. She goes, my God, the pain and the agony and the sorrow on Brad Pitt's face. It was such a beautiful thing, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I believe he then later gave an interview, and he pointed out that, in fact, I had no look on my face. I had a completely blank look. But the way the story was built, everybody watching that movie put a look on my face. They pasted a look on my blank face, a look of pain and sorrow and suffering. I didn't have to do anything. That is good acting. That is what Sting did in this segment. That's what Shawn Michaels does. That's what all of these guys do that are really, really great at this sort of thing. You don't oversell and overact and swoon when you hit the turnbuckle. If you get thrown into a turnbuckle with great force, you're going to feel it. But you know what? It's not going to hurt that bad. And when you sell a turnbuckle like you've been impaled, it just makes the entire match a joke. It just makes the entire thing preposterous. And Sting did the right thing by having no look on his face during that last segment. It was awesome. So anyway, a lot of people could learn a lot of things from watching Sting. And he didn't do anything. He sat in a chair.
For damn sure, yes.
Yeah. Anyway. What a pay-per-view this was.
I thought this was, on the TNA curve, not bad. It was watchable. Had 2 or 3 pretty good matches. But it's a TNA pay-per-view, and they must leave a bad taste in your mouth on all shows.
I gave it a thumbs in the middle. Dave actually gave it a thumbs up.
I would go very slightly leaning up.
I gave it just a solid thumbs in the middle.
Yeah, it was for 3 hours. It was paced well. It was watchable. It flew by. It helped that I got there late. That may have helped the watching time. I got there in the middle of Bully Ray cutting a promo, and you assured me I had missed nothing. So James Storm came out. He made fun of Bully Ray's chicken legs, a line you found quite offensive, or at least hypocritical. And then they had a 2-minute match, and James Storm hit a super kick and won.
He had knee surgery, or foot surgery or something. He had surgery.
Well, that sucks.
They were bone spurs, I think. I've actually totally forgotten.
We had Jeremy Borash starting a on-screen feud with Garrett Bischoff based on one annoying, it was a tweet or radio interview Bischoff did. The fact that I don't know off the top of my head.
It's on Facebook, actually.
Either way, the fact that I don't know off the top of my head and they are now promoting a feud about it should tell you a lot. And of course, what's it going to lead to? An Eric Bischoff versus Jeremy Borash match? That sounds awful. So, as they're bickering, poor Austin Aries is standing there rolling his eyes and yawning about how stupid all this is. Finally, Eric asks him a question. And Austin says whatever his match is always the main event. Then they shook hands and murmured unintelligibly for like 10 seconds. Yeah, Zema Ion versus Austin Aries.
Good match.
This was a good match. I went 3 1/4 stars. Austin Aries is awesome.
Indeed he is.
Zema Ion is not, but he can do some cool things. He's still very, very green. He's overreacting to things. He's overselling, and sometimes when they're in the middle of a high spot, you can see he's more concerned with getting in position than he is with making it look good, if that makes sense. Like he looks like he's following a script sometimes. But, that being said, this was good and it worked well. He did, at one point, take a flat back bump, a somersault bump from the top rope to the floor. Don't do this. Anyone. And then they did the same moonsault spot that resulted in a broken neck for Jesse Sorensen. Nobody was hurt here, and then the announcers did not even acknowledge it.
Nor did anyone in the audience recognize it or care, it appeared.
I don't blame them as much because it's not their job. The announcers let it go by.
Actually, you know what? I'm kind of glad they did. I am sick of this move is a potential neck breaker storyline.
Well, I have bad news for you. They're going to continue it. So, the finish was...
Taz was busy reading tweets, I'm sure.
Taz was reading tweets all night long. That was hyper annoying. It got worse.
Which actually reminds me, remember when I didn't know the Elimination Chamber involved eliminations?
Yes.
It's because I was tweeting the results the entire time. I learned a valuable lesson that night.
Don't tweet?
Taz hasn't learned that lesson yet. He was so busy tweeting, he paid no attention to the show.
That's true. That's true. Mm-hmm. So the finish was Ion got his hairspray and he zapped Aries in the eyes with it behind the ref's back. And Aries kicked out, but he was still blind, and he sold his blindness throughout the rest of the match, which was quite great. They ended up grappling on the top rope, and Aries hit a sunset flip off there that laid Ion out. Mm-hmm. Then he stumbled around the ring until he found him, and he hit a brainbuster in the last chancery for the win. Austin Aries is great, everybody. He just is.
He is quite great.
Got a hype video for the Motor City Machine Guns. They're going to return and apparently save Detroit.
Good.
Crimson and Matt Morgan versus Magnus and Samoa Joe.
This sucked.
This did suck. It sucked for us watching it. It also sucked, I'm sure, for Magnus and Samoa Joe wrestling it. Because you see, in this feud, wherein they lose almost all the time except for the one match where they won the belts, now they have a match where the opponents could not get along, and basically what happened here was Magnus and Samoa Joe got beat up for 2 straight handicap matches. One man beat them up, and then a different man beat them up, and then the 2 men who beat them up could not get along, and one of them left. Then he returned to lay out his partner, and Magnus and Joe got a fluke win.
Magnus and Joe actually won 2-on-1.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be baby faces, by the way.
I guess. So, yeah, this booking sucked, and, match was no good. We had Crimson by himself got the heat on Magnus and Joe. No one cared. I know it's hard to believe. And it's not a knock on Crimson or Magnus or Joe. It's just a bad way to put a match together. So, yeah, that sucked. We had Borash apologizing for Bischoff's actions earlier, saying he couldn't say anything that hadn't already been said backstage for 20 years. Insider stuff. Backstage gossip. That's what people want to hear. Asked Roode a question from Twitter. Roode talked about what a stupid question it was. He started to cut a good promo, and then Storm interrupted and said he wanted to fight, and Roode backed down. Taz and Mike TNA had a long discussion of Twitter and hashtags and pound signs. People are paying to watch the show. Robbie E and Robbie T came out. To make a very long story short, they issued the open challenge. They teased fighting a fan. They were going to walk away. Devon showed up and accepted and the match was on. I summed that up in 6 seconds. They killed 10 minutes of TV time with it. Again, this is a pay-per-view. People paid to watch this.
Well, it's a B show.
Oh, well. Did you pay B money?
Actually, I did because I refused to order it in HD, so I only gave him $34.95 instead of $44.95.
I see. So we got Devon versus Robbie E. Devon, much like his brother Bully Ray, is in probably the best shape of his career. They brawled a bit. Devon made his comeback. He knocked Robbie T off the apron. He had a spinebuster on Robbie E and pinned him to win the title, whatever that belt is. I don't even know. But Devon's a champion now. So, it was short. It was like, 3 or 4 minutes. But the crowd reacted bigger to it than anything Zema Ion did in all his flips and dives. So, this got a thumbs up.
Well, Devon's a star.
Devon is a star. Dixie announced that Slammiversary would be in Dallas next year. Gail Kim versus Madison Rayne. Much like the Austin Aries match, this was a heel versus heel encounter, but sadly there was no Austin Aries involved, and thus there was no heat. This was the match where Taz was just openly reading tweets to kill time. Mm-hmm. The match was boring, and he would rather read Twitter.
Actually, I thought the match was fine, all things considered.
Really?
Dude, I've been watching a lot of Velvet Sky matches.
This is better than Velvet Sky.
Listen, I am of the Nigel McGuinness school of when people say, man, it was a great match, but absolutely nobody cared. I'm like, well, wasn't that great then? So from that perspective, this match wasn't all that good. But I mean, I've seen a lot worse. The fans didn't care at all, but they worked hard. They didn't mess anything up. It did go too long, but I can't say that this was like a terrible match or anything like that. I've seen some bad women's matches.
All I know is that during this match, the fans were bored. I was bored. The announcers were bored. They were reading Twitter and usernames. Madison at one point told Gail they were not friends. Here are my notes. It reads, "This sucks," in all capital letters. And then I described it as a failure in all capital letters. Apparently, I did not like it as much as you did. Borash tried to ask Daniels and Kazarian another question from Twitter. Daniels interrupted and took over. Really had nothing to say. AJ Styles and Mr. Anderson versus Daniels and Kazarian. I'm in the minority. In fact, I may be the only one, but I thought this was the best match in the show.
I think I did as well, actually.
This was, at its core, it was just a basic, old-school, good tag team match where you had the heat on the small guy who hot-tagged the big guy and ran wild. They did some cool moves, and they did a finish, which was, in particular, AJ tried to springboard dive. Kazarian caught him for the reverse pile driver thing, but AJ rolled through and hit a Styles Clash for the win. AJ Styles, in particular, just looked like he was the best guy on the show.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think anyone can argue that.
As great as Austin Aries was, AJ was just at another level this evening.
A stud.
He was awesome.
He was great. And there was a bit here where he threw Daniels into the ropes, and Daniels is running back at him, and AJ tries a hip toss, and Daniels very smoothly turned it into an abdominal stretch. And I said to myself, I've never seen that before. Then Taz said, I've never seen that before. And between me and Taz, that's a lot of wrestling we've seen.
That's true.
And we have not seen a spot like this before. So
a lot of wrestling and a lot of hamburgers.
Between me and Taz?
Yeah.
Probably. Mm-hmm. Not sure exactly what Taz eats.
A lot of pizza. That's probably better.
A lot of pizza. Probably a lot of cheesesteaks. He just spends time in Philadelphia. So, yeah. This was really, really good. And then the babyfaces won, and Anderson did a weird, pudgy little dance, which added a quarter star. Angle cut a promo. He addressed his young son Cody watching at home. He said he usually did not want Cody watching violence on TV, but he wanted Cody to watch everything he was going to do to Jeff Hardy. He was going to tear Jeff's hair out and all this, and he was funny, but at the same time also crazy and scary. I enjoyed this. Then we had the match. Kurt Angle versus Jeff Hardy. This was the consensus pick as the best match in the show. I watched this and thought, I have seen this exact same Kurt Angle match.
Actually, you know what? I do, thinking back, I don't know. This actually was a hell of a match.
I will say that everyone liked this more than I did. My opinion on this may be just wrong, but it's still my opinion. I watched this and I thought, I have seen this exact same Kurt Angle match 500 times, usually better than this.
Well, listen, Kurt Angle's had many matches better than this. Kurt Angle's in slow motion. He's broken down. He's slow, which is ironic given he's attempting to do the Olympic trials in 1 month.
Yeah.
But regardless, he still managed to pull out a hell of a match with Jeff Hardy. I was amazed by the end because I've watched this Kurt Angle not have great matches dating back to that last match, actually the first match, the TV match with James Storm that was awesome. And everybody thought James Storm was the next big thing, and that's how he got his big push. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know what happened with Angle. I got some ideas, but point is, he kind of fell off a cliff, and part of it's just trying to save himself for the amateur stuff and not get hurt and that sort of thing. But first half of this match, I was like, man, Kurt, homie, poor guy. And then by the end, I thought, wow, he really pulled it out of his ass here. And I thought it was a very good match.
I do agree that the last 3 or 4 minutes picked up a lot. Basically, I thought the first 3 quarters of this was boring and mundane, and then it was very good for 3 or 4 minutes. It did get, by the end, the best reaction on the show. So if you want to use that same Nigel McGuinness logic, you could say it was the best match on the show that way.
I'd probably give it 3 3/4. And the tag match maybe 3.5. I
like the tag match much more. But again, I've seen a lot of feedback. My opinion on this may just be wrong. Borash talked about Twitter more. Sting came in for a promo, talked about how much Twitter sucks. Made me laugh. So we had the main event, the grudge match, Sting versus Bobby Roode. Sting did just enough offense to get a "you still got it" chant. Then Roode cut him off, worked Sting's leg for a while. Sting made a comeback, hit a top rope suplex. It did occur to me here, Hulk Hogan is completely immobile right now. He is a broken man. And part of that is he's advancing in age and has wrestled a lot. Hulk Hogan is 6 years older than Sting.
No, less than that, I think, dude.
Maybe. So Sting is still pretty amazing, is my point.
I think he's only like 5 years older.
Could be. So, it was the Impact crowd. They are into cheering for their guys, but when there is a heel on offense theoretically getting heat, they do not care at all. And it was abundantly true in this main event. So they're doing their finish, and Roode grabs a chair, he sets it up in the ring, and then Sting cuts him off, and he hits the death drop, but in the process, the back of his head smacked into the chair. A fucking stupid thing to do. And then Roode rolled over and pinned him. So yes, the heel won, because the babyface was a geek and knocked himself out like a dipshit.
Actually, it looks like Hogan is 5 years older than Sting.
There you go.
Who, in fact, just turned 53 yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday, Stinger.
That's right.
So then we got a very, very, very long segment where Bobby Roode abducted Dixie Carter, threw her into the ring, teased murdering Sting several times. She told him not to. Fans chanted for Hogan. Then they chanted for James Storm. Then they chanted for Samoa Joe. Then they chanted for, Joe Parks. Then they chanted for everyone in TNA. No one came down to help Sting. No one came down, for that matter, to help Dixie, an innocent woman and their boss, who's being manhandled here. And Roode scared them forever, and he eventually smeared Sting's paint onto Dixie's face. This sucked. And like I said, left me with a bad, bad taste in my mouth.
Well, we'll see what they do tomorrow night.
There you go.
I actually, honest to God, I suppose it's my job, but
who cares?
I have not read any of the spoilers for the TNA tapings.
I used to read spoilers when they came out, thinking that if there was a big secret on the show, I would hear it anyway, so I may as well just read these. And now I just don't care.
Actually, the thing to me is just like, I used to read all the spoilers, and then by the time the show came along, I'd forgotten them. So it's kind of like, again, if something major happened, I'm sure I would have heard about it. But for like the, Austin Aries beat Frankie Kazarian or whatever, I will have absolutely completely forgotten by showtime.
Right.
Normally I do look at the spoilers, but I just haven't looked at them this week. But actually now I'm kind of curious. Have they fired Bobby Roode? I would bet not, given lockdown is coming up.
Actually, I did read something about this. Yeah, they addressed it. I remember they went as far as well.
I'm intrigued enough to find out now.
The gist of it is that Dixie was going to fire him, and Sting came out and begged for his job so James Storm could kick his ass.
What a stupid storyline.
No, didn't say it wasn't.
Dixie was going to fire her champion?
Yeah.
Why doesn't she fire security who didn't come out?
That's a great question. The first 5 minutes of Impact was basically the last 5 minutes of the pay-per-view. They show pretty much the whole thing with Roode dragging Dixie into the ring and tormenting Sting and nobody coming out to help. So then Dixie comes out for a promo.
That sounds very much like the Granny segment.
5 minutes of torment.
I'm tormented and no one comes to help.
Yes. So Dixie Carter comes out to cut a promo, and she's trying to cut this promo through fake tears about how Bobby Roode has disrespected her and the company and the fans. It was insufferable. It was awful. The crowd is chanting, "Fire Bobby." Sting comes out. The fans chant, "Let's go, Sting." Sting says firing Bobby Roode won't let the fans get the right kind of revenge. Says his position as GM is not working. At this point, they went to commercial. They cut Sting off mid-sentence. They came back, he just kept right on talking. He said the company came alive at Victory Road. Explain this to me. I like the show. I don't see how it made the company come alive.
I wasn't sure either, to be honest with you.
So the long story short, he announces he can no longer be a GM and wrestler. He's not good at doing both jobs, so he's only going to do one. He's going to be a wrestler. He is stepping down as GM, at which point Dixie cried, "What am I supposed to do?"
Bring back Russo!
You're the fucking owner. Run your own goddamn company. No. Sting says he knows the right person to lead the company. The fans start chanting Hogan's name. Sting says it is time to put the real Hulk Hogan in charge. Dixie cannot believe this, but Sting told her to trust him. Sting was good here. Dixie was awful. There you go.
I was baffled by the fact that Sting was nearly killed at the pay-per-view, hitting the back of his head on that chair, and absolutely destroyed by Bobby Roode. And then he just came out, hop, skip, jump, all happy.
Yeah.
The pay-per-view turned around Impact or whatever. I was like, perhaps you don't remember anything that was involved in your segment at the end of the show. That was, I don't know. He didn't seem all that shook up about it.
No, he was Sting. We had a random 4-way X Division Championship match in the opener. Austin Aries versus Kid Cash versus Zema Ion versus Tony Nese. They did a bunch of moves. Zema Ion did the same moonsault that broke Jesse Sorensen's neck. Once again, he hit a guy in the head with his knees. Please retire that move forever.
I'm actually, God bless the guy. I got nothing against the guy. But if I never had to see Zema Ion again on the show, it'd be too soon. Again, it's nothing against the guy or anything like that, but as long as he's there, I'm going to have to watch him do the moonsault and hit people in the head with his knees.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to listen to him talking about how he broke the guy's neck.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to listen to him talk about how he's going to break other guys' necks. Yeah. So I'd rather not see him anymore.
Yeah.
Or just move on. Get rid of that stupid moonsault. Get rid of the stupid comments about Jesse Sorensen. If Jesse Sorensen is 100% clean bill of health and he's ready to return, maybe you can bring back at least references to the incident. But for the next year, I don't need to see him doing that moonsault because he did, in fact, hit Austin Aries exactly like he hit Jesse Sorensen. Jesse Sorensen, yes, was unlucky. It was a fluke accident. But if you keep hitting guys with your knees on the top of the head over and over, eventually someone else is going to go down. So stop doing the move and stop talking about it, please. I'm begging. I don't beg often on this show, but please stop!
So shortly after this, they were back in the ring. They did a 4-man stacked-up superplex spot. It appeared there were multiple fatalities here, and the worst of all was Ion, who appeared to land from a great height onto the back of his neck. Just a terrifying match in hindsight. At this point, all 4 men were down, and Bully Ray hit the ring and killed them all. And I read about this in the spoilers, and it sounded like the classic big guy destroys the entire X Division in one night. It was not nearly that bad on TV because it was not Bully Ray beating up 4 men. It was 4 men beating themselves up. Then he came up and attacked them when they were already down. So he was just him being, in fact, a bully, and he cowered, and picking up the scraps. And didn't even really say anything. He cut a quick promo earlier vowing that there would be no hostages or something, but that was it.
No, he's going to take hostages.
Well, he didn't really. He just beat them up. Unless he kidnapped them all.
Mm.
We then had the best segment in Impact history. Or at least the start of it. Mexican America's in their parking lot. They have this badass truck painted in Mexican flag colors, and they find it's being towed. They're very upset. They realize it's not because they parked it illegally, it's being repossessed, and the guy driving the tow truck is from Repo Games. He gives them a chance to save their truck. If they can answer some questions about Mexican history, he will make their car payment for them, and they can keep the car. Otherwise, he's repossessing it. So they got questions like, what year did Mexico declare independence from Spain? Where were chimichangas invented? How do you spell Guadalajara? And they got too many questions wrong. So they're going to get their car towed. But they convinced the guy to give them one more chance. He said, wait here. We'll go win the World Tag Team Championship. Then we'll be able to pay our bill. Mm-hmm. He said, okay.
I couldn't believe that such a show existed in this format, and you alerted me that, in fact, that's exactly the format of this show.
Repo Games, yes.
Now I must watch it.
I've never seen it. I am familiar with what it is. Yeah, this was a great, fabulous, old-school, hokey wrestling angle. It reminded me very much of the things we used to see in Ohio Valley all the time, and I mean that in the strongest possible positive sense. And yes, it made the wrestlers look like fools and poor people, but at least it's the heels who look bad, as we'll get to later.
And we were alerted that if they had won the tag titles, they would have money.
That's also true. Mm-hmm. And apparently cash. You get a cash payment on winning the belts. Sarita and Rosita versus Eric Young and ODB. Rosita is impossibly tiny. I don't think she's as tall as the top rope. So Eric still can't wrestle the girls. So he gets his hot tag and he just starts doing cartwheels. And he strips down to these pink and black Speedos. And the Mexican girls start getting cozy with him. They were smitten and he was smitten back with them. This made ODB angry. She destroyed her rivals in a jealous rage. She stared down Eric. Eric tried to apologize. It looked like a breakup was imminent. But then ODB kissed Eric and threw him on top of Rosita for the pin.
That's about it.
All right. Crimson was watching Matt Morgan's horrible insurance commercial and shaking his head.
This was awesome.
It was not as awesome as it could have been. He did not say, "Look at you, Matt Morgan, doing commercials where you talk about how broke you are, what a geek you turned out to be." Now, his point was that Morgan was using Crimson to try to boost his acting career, and so he dumped him. He
should have just kept, if he really wanted to put one over on him, he should have kept teaming with him, because his acting career is going nowhere while teaming with Crimson.
This would have been better if he had just pointed to the commercial over and over again and just shaking his head.
Yeah.
So he announced that he was wrestling Morgan next week, and as soon as he announced this, Morgan attacked him.
By the way, let's think about this for a second. So Crimson came to the Impact Zone with presumably a videotape of Matt Morgan's insurance commercial. And he popped it in the VCR and he had to watch it, I guess, to confirm his belief that Matt Morgan was no good.
Yeah.
Because he was sitting there with a clicker and he was rewinding and watching it. I think it's funny to think about these things.
It is. We had the best part of the show. Jeff Hardy was cutting a promo backstage about all the smack Kurt Angle had talked about him. Then he had to cheat to win. He started to talk about the match they were going to have at Lockdown when Joe Park Esq arrived. He asked if Jeff had seen Abyss. Jeff said no. Joe Park gave Jeff a business card. Jeff left. And then Joe Park Esq stood alone in the hallway. He put his fingers to his chin. He made a deeply thoughtful expression and just started looking in random directions.
Yes.
Thank God for Joe Park Esq.
Joe Park is, I actually think he's a pretty good actor.
Yes.
The way he introduces himself to all the characters is awesome. Jeff Hardy, the number one superstar in all of TNA, is sitting there cutting a promo, and Joe Park walks up and he's like, "You're Jeff Hardy. Joe Park." He's so sincere.
Yes.
He's so unbelievably sincere when meeting these men. And he's the best.
We had a great history package on James Storm and Bobby Roode and their history with the company, dating back to Roode's days in Team Canada and Storm's appearance in the first show. And they showed Roode and Storm wrestling in a tag team match in what may as well have been the Stone Age. It was so long ago. And they talked about guys like Booker T and Kevin Nash and R-Truth passing through the company while Roode and Storm had stuck around. And when I say that, and when I read it, it sounded like the kind of thing that buries TNA as a minor league, but it's not how it came off here. It just came off as they were the guys who stuck around. The other guys couldn't hack it here in TNA. And it didn't even get to beer money, so there's more to come. But this was really good. Storm then cut a promo in the ring. He started talking about how it was unfair that families saved their money to go on vacation couldn't go because gasoline was too expensive. He said this in the Impact Zone at Universal Studios in front of people who were on vacation.
Yep.
That made me laugh. So, eventually he calls out Bobby Roode. Instead, an unknown man in a suit hit the ring. He identified himself as William Kelly, Roode's legal advisor. He began to read a prepared statement. Storm was just staring at him, slack-jawed.
I love that term, by the way, a prepared statement. I've got an unprepared statement right here.
Yeah.
It's a jumble of letters and words.
Well,
in a random order.
That's yes, people do that sometimes. Not random order, but the ad-lib.
I see.
Prepared statement means I sat down and wrote down every word of what I was going to say.
I see. I just say I've got a statement, but that's all right.
Fine. So the statement said that Roode would be staying in Canada until lockdown. However, Daniels and Kazarian had told Roode they wanted to wrestle Storm, so Storm could pick one tonight. Do not ask me why Roode can book matches for other people. Roode said he would rather fight Daniels and Kazarian tonight, so he wouldn't have to worry about them next week. He asked the lawyer to give a message to Roode, and then superkicked him. This is good. I don't recommend superkicking lawyers, of all people, but it was fine. Kurt Angle was cutting a promo. He could not believe that Jeff Hardy wanted a rematch. The producers reminded him that Garrett had beaten him in the 5-minute challenge by going to a draw, basically. This outraged Kurt Angle. He tracked Garrett down. He challenged him to a 3-minute challenge, which we got. So it's Kurt Angle versus Garrett Bischoff in a 3-minute time limit match, and they spent the first 60 out of 180 seconds standing there jaw-jacking. Mm-hmm. Then Garrett runs wild. Kurt cuts him off, throws him out of the ring, and then Garrett realizes he only has a minute to go, and Garrett begins to play keep away. And he's not even like Kurt's chasing him and he's running through the ring. No, Kurt is standing in the ring, daring him to get in, and Garrett is saying no. And the fans begin to boo this cowardice.
I was surprised. I was surprised by this idea that someone actually came up with it and then executed it. It was very odd.
This is not... Well, yeah, we once watched a match with Bryan Danielson and Colt Cabana where the time limit was running out and Colt was ahead in falls, and he's tried to spend the last 2 minutes playing keep away, but again, he was active in it. He was rolling through the ropes. He was making Danielson chase him. This was...
running for his life to eke out a victory in a 3-minute challenge.
Yeah. And more to the point, this is Kurt Angle daring him to get in the ring, and Garrett saying no. I'm going to turn down this fair fight. So then, with 30 seconds to go, Gunner attacked him, so it was a DQ, threw him into the ring. They double-teamed him until Hardy made the save. Mm-hmm. We had Joe and Magnus versus Mexican America. Hernandez looks like 30 pounds smaller than he used to be. He is still ripped, but much, smaller. So Joe gets the hot tag. He's running wild on both dudes. He puts the choke on Anarchia. At this point, Rosita and Sarita jump up on the apron to distract the ref. The Repo Games guy came out. He grabbed both women and carried them both to the back. Hernandez attacked Joe. He put him in powerbomb position. He stuck his arms out in a crucifix pose. Then Magnus hit the ropes, and he's ringing Hernandez, and Hernandez is just standing there with his arms out to the sides, and Magnus boots him in the face. Mm-hmm. This was great comedy. And again, I'm fine with this, because it's the heels who look stupid. He was so concerned with posing, he refused to block or dodge this kick.
Yes. His hands were already up.
Yes.
Just in the wrong spot.
But that would have made him look uncool. So he looked cool to the very end. At which point Magnus' foot met his mouth. Then they hit their double team finish and won. I enjoyed this.
I love Joe and Magnus. And Joe is clearly more motivated now than he's been in 4 years.
Yes.
So, great!
This is a thumbs up.
Right team won.
So, Mexican America failed to win either set of tag titles, actually. So, the Repo Games guy was going to take their car. They ran out there to try to talk him out of it. There was some physicality that, frankly, it was embarrassing. The upshot of all this is that Hernandez and Anarchia backed down. Then the Repo Games guy, he turns to Rosita and Sarita and he says, "These men have no money and no car. You girls should dump them and stick with me.
Yep,
And the girls agreed.
they did.
So the guy walked off. He had Rosita under one arm, Sarita under the other, and Rosita says, this is a quote, "No money, no honey."
Yep,
And they strutted off into the night.
this was awesome.
This is great pro wrestling right here.
This was awesome.
This ruled.
No money, no honey.
No money, no honey. A lesson I have learned over and over the years. James Storm versus Daniels and Kazarian. Heels beat him up for a while. At one point, they started to not get along. I think Kazarian felt guilty about double teaming one man to death. And Storm dodged a corner charge. He had a pair of super kicks and he won. And between his promos, the crowd interaction, beating two men here, James Storm came off like the star to end all stars on this show.
You look great.
This was good, man. So we had our main event segment. Sting comes down. He calls out Dixie, asks her to trust him. Dixie agreed, so Sting brought Hogan out. Keep in mind, the last time Hogan was in charge was when they, talked Dixie into... They tried to steal the company from her. So now he's back in charge again. But it's the real Hulk Hogan Sting, as assured us. So Hogan comes out. Everyone's cheering. His music's playing. Sting is playing cheerleader. Hogan is standing there with a kind of a sheepish grin. And then the show just ends.
Cliffhanger, apparently.
Anti-climax is what I called it.
I thought what they did, in a self-contained bubble, what they did with, well, except for Dixie's acting, but what they're doing with Dixie, Sting, and Hogan in a self-contained bubble, I think is fine. But it is difficult for me to consider the fact that for 8 months, Hulk Hogan ran roughshod and tried to destroy TNA.
Yeah.
Leading to a match where Sting wrestled Hulk Hogan at Bound for Glory, and he beat him to win the company for Dixie Carter.
Yeah.
And put an end to the diabolical Hulk Hogan
Yeah.
and Eric Bischoff once and for all.
Yeah.
Now Sting is ready to just hand over the keys to him because Bobby Roode was mean to Dixie.
Right.
And it's not even like Bobby Roode's going to be wrestling Sting anytime soon. Sting says he's going to go home and get in shape. And eventually he will come back better than ever. I'm not sure how his job as GM gets in the way of this. And why, of all the people in the world, I don't care if this is the real Hulk Hogan in storyline. Sting comes off like a fool for trusting this man again.
Yeah.
A complete fool. Let's see where they go.
Well, but between the Repo Game stuff and the James Storm push and how well that came off, I enjoyed this show.
It's a good show.
Solid thumbs up.
Not the best show I've ever seen, but a good show. And I could forgive some of the goofiness on the program, like Zema Ion, because we got the...
And Dixie Carter.
Even Dixie's like...
Now.
Dixie to me is just... She's like...
Unnecessary evil.
Hilariously bad. Like, it's something that... I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I see that's horrible, and I'll forget about it the next day. But, like, I'll never forget Dixie Carter.
I guess that's a positive.
So,
she was terrible on the show.
She is awful at her job. And seeing her out there being awful at her job every week, there's something about it. I don't know.